So we're looking at a time and height relationship of a rocket that's being shot from the school. So time in seconds and height in meters. Okay, so it's shot from the roof of a school, we know that, and we're also given the equation. So the equation given is h equals negative 5t squared plus 22t plus 15. Okay, this is just easier to read now because we know it's in the form y equals ax squared plus bx plus c. Remember, c is always the constant term. What does c represent on a graph? Intercept, good. This is the y-intercept, so we know what information from that. What does that represent in this situation? Okay, so we know that is where the rocket was launched from. Okay, we don't know the maximum height. We can find that out. We know that it was shot from the roof of a school, which is 15 meters above the ground. So that's where it's launched from. Yeah, so the question A says, what is the height of the school? So what's the height of the school then? 15 meters. This is where it's launched from, so the height of the school is 15 meters. Good. Now we want to know the length of time it takes, so how long it takes for the rocket to reach a point when it's 10 meters above the ground. So we can say that 10 meters would probably be somewhere around here, right? I want to know how much time has passed, so the x value, x is time, how much time passes when the rocket is 10 meters above the ground. Okay, so we want to know what the x value is when h is 10. We want to know the time. How much time has passed when the height is 10 meters. So we're going to replace h with the number 10. So when the height is 10. So let's put this into standard form so that we can solve for t. We want to know what the x values are. T was our x value. So we're going to rearrange this into standard form. Standard form sets everything equal to 0, right? So we want to rearrange this so that it says something is equal to 0. So we want to put everything on one side. Okay, so I want to move this plus 10 to the other side. Well, we're not really moving it, but we're subtracting 10. Take away 10. So I have to take away 10, right? So I have negative 5t squared plus 22t plus 15 minus 10 equals 0. Because I got rid of that, that's nothing. There's nothing on that side now. Simplify. What does it become? Negative 5t squared plus 22t. What's 15 take away 10? 5. Okay, so we're going to use quadratic formula because we're solving for t, which is our x values. A is equal to negative 5. B is equal to C equals. Okay, so plug it into the quadratic formula. And I want you to tell me what the x, or in this case t, is equal to. Okay, so once we plug in the values, we get negative 0. We'll round it to 2 decimal places, 21. And what was the other value of t? 4.61. We rounded it off. One says that t is negative. Is it possible for time to be negative? No. So what is our answer here? The question was asking how long does it take? We'll go back to this. How long does it take for the rocket to reach a height of 10 meters? So what's the answer? 4.61 seconds. After, okay, time passes. Everyone look here. We start with 0 time passing. That's when you start. And when it gets to 4.61 seconds, the rocket has gone down 5 meters. It reaches another, it's 10 meters above the ground, okay? Now let's find out how long is the rocket in the air. When does the rocket, and this was a question I told you was going to be on your test, when does the rocket hit the ground? So I want to know the x value from my original equation, right? When height is 15, I want to know what x is equal to. We just found out what x is equal to when height was 10, but now let's do the same thing find the x value, so quadratic formula, using the original equation. Okay, so the original equation is x equals negative 5t squared plus 22t plus 15, right? So we're going to use quadratic formula. What is a equal to? Negative 5, b is equal to, and c is equal to 15. We want to know what t equals. Oops, negative b, sorry. Using quadratic formula, because that will give us the x-intercepts. Wait. Okay, so t is equal to negative 0.6 and t is equal to 5. Again, can time be negative? So how long did it take for the rocket to hit the ground? 5. Let's look at the graph again. Our little sketch here, it was in the air for 5 seconds, and it makes sense. It took 4.6 seconds to get to 10 meters, and then it dropped rapidly. I'm going to show you what the graph looks like from Desmos. I plugged in the original equation into Desmos. The rocket started from 15 meters above the ground, which it shows here. It hit the ground at after 5 seconds, which you found. And let's see, what was it supposed to be when the rocket was 10 meters above the ground? 4.61. And if we just kind of look here, that looks like it would be at approximately 4.61. This rocket actually hits, you can't see it on the graph, but we're actually going to calculate now. What is the highest point that the rocket goes? What is the maximum value of the rocket? Okay, so now we want to find the maximum height. So we are going to complete the square. Okay, so first of all, look here. This is our equation. When a is any number that isn't 1, what's a right now?
Negative 5.
Negative 5. I want to factor that out. I want to divide the first term and the second term by negative 5. We're going to leave our plus 15 because we're going to deal with that later, okay? So let's divide the first term. We're factoring it out, so it becomes negative 5 times, what's negative 5 divided by negative 5? Okay, so we're left with t squared. Then we have positive 22 divided by negative 5. What is a positive divided by a negative? And then 22 divided by 5 is 4.4, and we have our t. We're leaving the plus 15. Okay, I'll just leave that here, plus 15. We're trying to create a perfect square trinomial here. What are we missing? We're missing the c, right? How do you find c?
Divided by 2, so have 2.
Good. So you guys tell me what c is. So c equals b. b is 4.4 divided by 2 squared. Well, it's actually negative 4.4. And then what is negative 4.4 divided by 2? Negative 2.2 squared. A negative times a negative becomes a positive, and 2.2 squared is 4.84, right? Is that what you guys got? So c equals 4.84. Okay, so we have h equals negative 5, right? I've now come up with a perfect square trinomial. T squared minus 4.4t. I know that the c value has to be 4.84, but you can't just add something into an equation. What do I have to do with it to nullify it? Subtract it. Keep this in the bracket right now because I'm adding and subtracting it inside the bracket. What do I have outside the bracket? I have the plus 15. We want to get rid of the negative 4.84, right? I only want my positive 4.84 inside the bracket because I want a perfect square trinomial. To remove this from the bracket, I need to distribute it. A lot of you are forgetting this step. Because there's a negative 5 outside the bracket, what do I have to do with that?
Multiply it by the negative 4.
Yes, I need to multiply it by the negative 4.84 to remove it outside the bracket. Okay? So h equals negative 5. I have my perfect square trinomial here, plus 4.84. And I distributed this times this. A negative times a negative is a positive. What did you get?
24.2.
24.2, okay. But I still have to add the 15 to that, right? How did we get, so we simplified this, right? How did we get this? This is where people are still having trouble with this. How did we get that as our answer? So you took the square root of a, which is t, square root of t squared is t, and the square root of 4.84 is 2.2, and we use the sign from b, and we know that it's squared because it's both of those multiplied together. So therefore, what's the maximum height? Maximum height of the rocket is 39.2 meters. Let's look at the graph and see if that's true. Thank you. Okay, so looking at the graph again on Desmos, I just scrolled up and here's the vertex. 39.2 meters is the highest that the rocket will be launched. How many seconds does it take for the rocket to reach the highest point? How many seconds? 2.2 seconds. It's here. It's the x value of the vertex.
Made with Doodlecast Pro.